just an incredibly cinematic, huge sound. And I love this patch that I've come up with. This is not a stock patch, but something I created in my spare time because it really shows off the Oberheim-like quality of the synthesizer. You get that incredible filter growl. Yes, it does sound thick, Nikki. And the reason is because the filters are Curtis CEM 3028s, and the 3020s are effectively the same filter in the Oberheim OB-Xa and the OB-8 by Oberheim, and therefore also in the OB-X8. So it's the same filters as the new hotness $5,000 synth. Effectively, it's just the 24 decibel per octave version. The ones on the Oberheims are switchable between 12 and 24. Just incredible. It's really great. It does sound squirmy is a good word for it. So tonight I'm going to be drinking this Boulevard Dark Truth Imperial Stout. So let's see if I can get this up where you guys can actually see it without too much reflection. So Dark Truth by Boulevard. It's their Imperial Stout, 10%, 60 IBUs. So for everybody who hangs out, do a quick cheers again for everybody who just showed up. How's everybody doing tonight? I love you guys. Let's get this party started. This one looks nice and chewy. Oh yeah, that's good. What about the OB-1? I've heard that a lot of people hear it and just go, hello there. Is that a joke going over my head, Ryan? What does my shirt say? It says, "Forgive me, Father, for I have synthed." I don't know if you guys can see it if I say it over there. It's actually a shout out to John Tidy from the Reaper blog. He sent me this shirt, or the link to the shirt, so I appreciate you, John. He's a hero of mine. I support him on Patreon. I use Reaper as a DAW, and his videos are invaluable. So, forgot Anna corrupted you into a Trekkie. It was a Star Wars joke. The OB-1. What's the OB-1? Help me. OB-1. God, I'm so fucking stupid. Hello there. So, something to talk about with the with this synth is, okay, first off, if I play some notes, a feature that kind of disappeared on synths for a while is the notes will actually ring out as I change the sounds. And there's the brain cell. So you could hear there, I did that deliberately, so you could hear that the voices actually continue to ring out as you change sounds. I swapped to this SQ brass sound, just to show you guys real quick. We've done a lot of brass stuff with the Oberheim, the Kawai K3, the K1, the Ensoniq Mirage. Real quick, this synth has polyphonic aftertouch, which is a really awesome feature that's almost featured on nothing but the highest end synths. Right now, I think the only ones that do it are the Hydra synth and Iridium Keys. I want to say those are the only two modern poly synths, and those are both expensive. So if you want to get into poly aftertouch, you can actually get an Ensoniq SQ-80 for usually less than $1,000, and they're really great. And the way they designed the pickups, or whatever you would say, I forget what the contacts on these means, they're resistant to breaking down over the years. So a lot of my other vintage synthesizers had aftertouch in the 80s, but it no longer works. But this synth it actually does. So what aftertouch normally is that if you play notes, you can apply pressure after you've pressed the notes, and it will change the sound. In this case, it increases the volume and opens the filter up a little bit. Right? So normally what happens is like whenever you apply aftertouch, it affects every voice. But on the SQ-80, it's actually not that way. So if I play this chord up here and I play soft, so I get kind of like a mellow tone, I can apply aftertouch per note instead of all over polyphonically. So you have complete control, and in fact, yes. It's a little hard to play, but you can apply aftertouch per note, which no synth in this category was able to do that. In fact, I think the only synth that could do that at the time was the Yamaha CS-80. And those go for $100,000 nowadays. So, yeah, that was a great joke, by the way, Ryan. The OP1 by Teenage Engineering is, in fact, a fun synth. I don't own any of the Teenage Engineering stuff, but the people that have it swear by it. Anyways, I just wanted to show you guys real quick because we might not get into the poly aftertouch stuff with this synth on the first pass, just because, again, I said it's extremely complicated. But I wanted to start by actually making some super simple sounds. Also worth saying real quick, I have a custom controller made for me by SYNTHARK here. It's the MSP-ESQy. And it's great because it's got these wonderful LED faders which allow you to open up the synth and have fader per function or knob per function with the synth. However, I don't know how much I'm going to use it tonight, actually, because the synth is very easy to program just with the way they laid everything out. You don't need it. It's there, it's cool, but you don't need it. And so in case anybody has this, they could do this. And by the way, Arturia, I think in the past year, has come out with the SQ-80V, which is their recreation of the synth, but it also has the VFX waveforms in it, as well as glitched waveforms. And so if you're watching this video and you're like, wow, I really want one of these, but I don't have $750 or so to spend on a vintage synthesizer that, you know, you don't always know. Yo! GK! Thank you so much for your for buying a bipolar unicorn shirt. I appreciate you so much. Whoever you are out there, it's really awesome that you guys are supporting Scum Night. So yeah, but if you want to get into these sounds, but you don't want to buy the vintage synthesizer, the Arturia recreation is really, really good. I've heard, I don't have it myself. I guess we could do a one-to-one comparison at some point on the stream if that's what people want. I feel like other people have done that, so I don't really need to. Anyways, I have a custom cart here. Well, it's not custom for me, but basically it allows you to have like 1,000 programs or whatever. But we're going to just start with a simple sawtooth patch I created. And we're going to go through each part of this synthesizer. So usually what I do with synths is I go through and I go like, you know, let's listen to the sounds. And we would go through a lot of the presets to be able to hear how the synth sounds. I'm not that interested in that. I'm much more interested in actually making our own sounds tonight. So we're going to start with a sawtooth wave. And please, this is a great stream for you guys to ask me questions as I go, because I sometimes forget and cruise past very interesting things, or I'll start talking like you guys know the deep parts of synthesis accidentally. So it can be hard for me to know how technical I should be, because I do have a big group of people who watch this channel who aren't native synthesists. They're people who enjoy the sounds and enjoy hanging out on SCUM night. But then I also have people who are like really good, like probably better than me, listening to this too. So to kind of split the difference sometimes can be a little bit. So, you know, go ahead and ask as many questions. How sharp is a sawtooth wave? Well, glad you asked, Gwen. So let's talk about first the sawtooth wave. So I'm going to go ahead and hit oscillator 1 over here, this button. You guys probably can't see it. I can control the wave by either selecting the wave and stepping through them with the arrows. I can use this as a fader, or I could use the fader over here. Oh, I forgot to enable it. So I need to go over to MIDI and just make sure that SysX is enabled. And now when I go back to the waveform, I should be able to change. Yes, I can. Run through all of the different waveforms. So, how sharp is a sawtooth? So in this case, let's listen to it. And you guys probably noticed that I have a little bit of delay and reverb. What that is actually Valhalla delay on the Water Echoes preset. The same one as I use for all of these streams, just to help it out a little bit, because these vintage synthesizers, most of them didn't have any effects on them, and neither does the SQ-80, so it just helps it sound a little bit more modern. So, what makes the SQ-80 interesting is that it's a hybrid synthesizer. A hybrid synthesizer, generally defined, there's a few different definitions, but easiest way to say it, almost always it's digital oscillators and analog filters. And the Ensoniq SQ-80 was really one of the pioneers of this. So although it's like a Roland D50 in sound, it has the analog filters that the D50 is missing. And it makes it where it's very awesome, because you get this kind of lo-fi. I don't think it sounds that lo-fi compared to the Mirage. I mean, pretty nice buzzing sawtooth. The Mirage, for comparison here, thinner, and the low end, or I'm sorry, the high end is just not really there. That's correct. The Novation Peak or Summit. Whoa. Hey, come on now. Stop that shit. What's causing? For some reason, I'm getting some feedback with the MS-2000, so we'll leave that off for now. The Novation Peak is a hybrid. It's got really, really high quality oscillators. This one had to do the best with what they had. So just like the Mirage has sort of a grainier digital sound, as we go down, you can really hear on this lowest note that little whine up there. That's the Nyquist frequency of the sampled waveform becoming audible. But you kind of have to go really low to hear that. And up here, actually love the sound up here. It sounds really good. I mean, just if you had to hear the oscillator sound of any of these synths in the room, I would say this is one of the better sawtooths. It's like slightly mellow, but it also has a nice buzziness up top, kind of like the Korg Prologue, which I've sadly sold. Gives me Prologue memories. Anyways, let's check out all of the different waves. So we've got sawtooth, bell. You'll notice right now it doesn't sound that bell-like, and that's because we haven't applied any modulation to the sound. So this is just the raw waveforms. they intend you to have perhaps the filter closed to get a more bell-like sound. So most of these are going to sound very static at first. But this, as a starting point, is so much more complex than the Oberheim analog synths, more complex than what else? The Poly 6, the HT6000, the DW8000 is a hybrid synth, but I wouldn't say is as complex sounding as this. The JX3P, the K3. We can really start getting interesting stuff. So we got sine waves, which is just the simplest sound you can have. Now this one, you really hear the digital nature of it. That should just be a perfect tone, but you can hear noise. Hear that noise up top? That noise up top, that's the... Let's see how it sounds down here. Ooh. Yeah, you get a lot of noise down there. Moving on, square wave. This is the Game Boy sound. Pretty good for emulating flute type sounds. Here's pulse, which is going to be a narrower pulse width. Wow, that's annoying. But that's how it should be. Here's noise 1. Interesting, it's not like white noise, it's... Start to approach some sort of noise down here. Really interesting. So we're just starting, right? Like, we got a while to go. I'm going to try to run through these quickly. This one's brighter. Sounds like there's some sort of ring modulation or something applied. Yeah, really weird. Hey, how's it going, Neil?
That is one seriously perverted bitch.
Yo, pull the lever, Kronk. Donated $6.66. Whoever you are out there, thank you very much. I appreciate your generosity so much. You guys make it possible for Scum Night to continue in perpetuity. So, noise 3. So already can get into some like industrial type stuff. Here's bass. So this is like a sampled bass. You can hear down here how it kind of could be used with a filter to sort of make like a slap bass type sound or something like that. Piano. So again, that's the waveform. The Kawai K3 had something very similar, if you guys remember. Electric piano. Kind of buzzy, bright voice. I love the voice sounds. Voice 2. Four-man T type stuff. Kick. Interesting. Reed. So for like reed instruments, like a saxophone. Blade Runner blues, maybe. Organs. Synth 1. That to me sounds like an additive wave. Synth 2. More additive type stuff. Synth 3 is actually pretty useful. So we're getting way outside what could be done with a typical analog synth, but we still have those Curtis analog filters. Format 1. You could get some very vocal type sounds like those with this. Vocal or format 2. 3. Sharper. 4. Very nasal. Wow, that's like that's like some bitches talk like that. And by bitches, that's gender neutral, not trying to be whatever. So another pulse wave. Square 2. Ooh, this one's like a nicer, rounder, kind of halfway between a square and a triangle. 4 octaves. So this is an additive wave where you're only getting, or you're getting 4 octaves of a note, like an organ. Prime, which is only the prime harmonics of a fundamental. Prime harmonics always have like an interesting sort sort of sound to them. Really cool. Bass 2. Electric piano 2. Ooh, that one's very nice. Noisy though. Octaves. Octaves and fifths. Saw 2. Triangle. We actually have a triangle wave. So a triangle wave is kind of halfway between a square and a sine wave, where it's pretty dark, good for bass. Is that rocking anybody's subs? That's thick. Thick in the ass region. Reed 2. Reed 3. Grit 1. Get some really dark stuff. No one else had these sort of aggressive waves back in the 80s. That's intense. 3. Glint. Okay, so these will kind of hurt your ears. What these are really high frequencies based off a fundamental that you would hear on something like a Fender Rhodes. So when you're creating sounds from multiple oscillators, you could have this just be a very short sound and have that at the start of a sound, and that's sort of like an attack. So you just hear it for a split second, it really sells an electric piano sound. So we got a few different glints. Clav. Brass. That's a good one. String. Digital. 2. Bell 2. It's almost like halfway between a bell and an organ. Alien. Breath. Love these. Oh my god, I love these so much. Voice 3. That's like halfway between the breath, like it's really noisy. Just like a gorgeous starting point to work from. Can you morph between waves? I guess that's a more modern feature. So, yes and no. Let's imbibe some alcohol. So, not that modern. The PPG Wave is an old synth. It might have been, is either early 80s or potentially even late 70s. And that did let you morph between wave. There's no interpolation, so what they would do is have like I think 128 waves, and they would morph between them. But what we can do with this is with the complex envelopes, we can actually have like one wave start later than the next one, like one wave end and then fade into the next and then fade into the next, a la the Wavestation or the more modern equivalent, the Hydra synth. Korg's Mod Wave does this cross-fading between waves. So yes, in a sense you could, for sure, but you'd be limited to, let's say, 3 oscillators, because each oscillator has its own amplifier. I'm going to say that again. Each oscillator has its own amplifier. So for you synth nerds out there, generally the analog synth way they work is all of the oscillators feed into a filter and then an amplifier. The way this synth works is each oscillator feeds into a separate amplifier, which feeds into the filter, which then feeds into a final amplifier. So, yeah, you can get really complicated, and we'll get into that. But basically, you can think of it as the ADSR has a delay stage if you want it to. Voice 3 is really cool. Steam. Metal. Love this atonal stuff. Chimes. Little wind chime sounds. Bowing. Okay, so now we've moved into some of the transient attack sounds. So this is the Roland D50 stuff where there's a very short transient that's been sampled. So if we took this bowing sound, It's like it enabled them to be able to get a little bit more realism than you would be able to do with any other synth, because the hardest part to capture or recreate with an analog synth is the transient. Real transients of acoustic instruments are very complicated. And so what Roland Corp did was they figured out that, hey, we don't have room to sample the whole instrument like you could on an Ensoniq Mirage, because it's going to sound like shit like the Ensoniq Mirage. So what we'll do is we'll have very short samples so we can have a bunch of them and use synthesis to fill in the rest. So we could do the same thing here, but with analog filters. We've got pick, like a guitar pick, pick 2. Oh, that's really cool. That's like almost like U2 The Edge type stuff. Mallet. Little xylophone action, slap bass. Plink. So these are designed to be used just at the very... That's what's really cool. We got to remember plink. I want to make like some sort of fluty thing, but have that at the front. Pluck. You can hear that these are starting to degrade. You can hear the grittiness of this. Aquatic Borealis says, I have an Uno Synth Pro, which is all analog, but it supports morphing. Yes, so yeah, a lot of modern synths have the ability to morph analog wave shapes and stuff. That wasn't that common back in the 80s. But you can hear, sounds pretty good up here, but down here, it's almost got that like dubstep sound. Really cool. Plunk. Click. And you'll notice that the length of the sample is different depending, just like on the Mirage. Takes twice as long an octave down and then 4 times 2 octaves down. Sounds pretty not useful. Well, it sounds really cool and industrial, but maybe not for whatever else you might be doing. Chiff. For like chiffy wind instrument sounds. Thump. Almost like slapping an acoustic guitar. Log drum. Kick. Snare. Oh, get some really nice dark industrial stuff down here. Cool toms. Drums. So this synth lets you do a whole lot of stuff. So have I lost anybody? Are we good so far? We're just covering waveforms. We got some more drums, but let's call it there. Because I want to show you actually how to be able to create sounds with this. So how's everybody doing? Are we feeling good? Are we feeling like we understand synthesis so far? Really, so far, we've just scratched the surface with the just the basic sound. So what I want to do now is go back and start with, I believe there was a string sound, right? We came across strings at some point. Well, you know what? One of the goals I had with this stream, and I'm going to just tip my cards to you right now. Everybody's in love with the Roland Juno 106. And I actually got a comment on Instagram about this, comparing it to a Juno 106. And I thought, that's a great way to talk about this synth. So everybody loves the Juno 106, and they are amazing. I've got a Juno, an Alpha Juno over there. It's great. But they go for like $2,000, and you can usually get, I saw an Ensoniq SQ-80 for $750 or less on Reverb. So you get them for less than half the price, and they're actually much, much more interesting. And they sound great because they have those Oberheim-esque Curtis filters. So why don't we start off actually by trying to create some Juno 106 sounds. And so what I'm going to do is just select a sawtooth. The first sound, I'm going to go to oscillator 2 right now, and it's on sawtooth as well. But we don't hear it. That's because I need to turn the amplifier for that and open it. Now, that sounds really not great. Because right now, they're too close to each other in tune, so they're sort of canceling each other out. So all I need to do is start opening up the fine tune. So we're already getting into Juno territory. That's 5 cents of detune. Let's take it to 10, get it more lush. Maybe a little too lush. Let's bring it back. 7. And of course we can change the semitunes. What is it? Here we go. Oh wait, there we go. I wanted to change the octave, sorry, to down 1. So this is them together. Like that. Let's bring it down an octave. Oh, it already was. Bring it down another one. To emulate the... Let me see here. So the sawtooth was down an octave. The first one, that's what happened. So... we're getting there. Now, to make it more like a Juno 106, the sub-oscillator on the Juno 106... Hey, Eddie, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. The sub-oscillator on the Juno 106 is not a true oscillator. So a sub-oscillator, what it does is every time the oscillator finishes its waveform, so let's say if it's a sawtooth, it starts high and goes low, or vice versa, it doesn't matter. Sounds the same. Every time that happens, it tells the sub-oscillator to go up, and if it's up, it tells it to go down. Right? So each time that crosses and you get one cycle of the waveform, it tells it to go up or down. And of course, an oscillator that goes up, down, is a square wave. And so it's a cheap way to make a synth sound better without actually having to spend the money on a second oscillator. So a Juno 106 truly only has 6 oscillators. This has a total of 18. So what we're going to do is just select a square wave, an octave down. So we're kind of more in that Juno territory. Actually, I want to go back to saw. In this case, I just like the sound of the saw better. I don't know. What do you guys think? Here's the square. It does sound more Juno-y. But I'm going to go with the sawtooth because I'm a slut for saws. I think that sounds really awesome. And we haven't even done any modulation. This is just 2 waves together. Now, please explain what makes it sound so much bigger. Is it adding notes or sound or waves? Okay, so what it is actually detuning oscillators. So I've selected the tuning, the fine tuning, and I'll bring it back into tune. Bring the volume down a bit so I don't blow your ears out. So this is... the 2 waves, 2 sawtooth waves, an octave apart. It sounds fine, but as soon as I add some detune, what it does is it starts to chorus and sort of cancel out and emphasize certain frequencies. So one more time, back to back, I'm going to do the no detune and then with 5 cents of detune. And some more. And what you can think of it as is this is sort of a sonic representation of as if there were multiple instruments playing together. So the reason in an orchestra, you don't have just one violinist, right? You have a few. Well, one reason is for chords, right? So if you want to play more than one note at a time, you have to have more than one violinist at a time, in general. I know there's techniques that you can use, but just as a general thought. Sam, welcome to the stream. Yes, this synth sounds great, and it's only going to get better. So as you add more violins beyond 3, though, what happens is the 2 violin sounds, because they're not perfectly in tune, they start to beat against each other and create a thicker, wider, more beautiful sound. And so that's why you have violin sections of like 20 people all playing together. It creates that thick, lush sound. And that's what we're doing with analog synths, or in this case, a hybrid synthesizer, is creating a lusher sound by detuning. So one more time, no detune, and I'll add a little bit more. Really big, really awesome. So now we have 2 oscillators on. Let's go ahead and now scroll through these real quick. And I want to get to the samples and find that bowed sound, which is coming up. Got so many cool things. Bowing. So now we should have just the 2 oscillators, because I have to turn the volume up. So we're going to just put that up. I don't hear the other ones, so let's go ahead and turn these down and make sure we have that one. All right, so we have to just balance it a little bit better and bring that there, and maybe something like that. Bring it down even a little bit more. Bring it down to 50. Bring this one down to... Okay, it's touchy. So now we actually have that sample. We have a little bit of an interest to the front end of the sound that you couldn't get with a Juno 106. Going in here, I'm going to adjust the octave and bring it up. Well, that's a little too much, I think. Yeah. Yeah, so down an octave was actually right. So that's oscillator 1, no change, oscillator 2 down an octave, and then down an octave on the bowing. I'm going to bring up the volume just a little bit more, 55, 55. So we haven't even touched the filter or the amplifier, the final envelope for the amplifier. So we're getting there. So what do we need to make a string sound in something like the Juno 106? Well, the amplifier 4, which is the one that everything goes to, so basically the one you would find on any other synth, we're going to use that one, and that's always controlled, I believe, by envelope 4. Now, this is the mind-bending part of the SQ-80. So if you've got some Valium, just pop those right now, pass out for the next 5 minutes while I explain this, and then just tune back in and enjoy the beautiful sounds. I'm going to try to make this as user-friendly as possible. We've talked about attack, decay, sustain, release on this channel before. Attack is how long it takes for the sound to reach its peak. So right now, as soon as I touch a key, it's at full volume. But I believe if I just add some here, it'll fade in. Right? And back to... That's the attack stage of an amplifier. So that's just fading in the notes instead of starting them at full thrust. Sometimes you want that, sometimes you don't. Then you have decay, which is how long it takes to go from faded all the way in to the sustain. The sustain is just the final level of the sound. So in this case, I believe if I... What is it here? If I take this level all the way down... You can hear that it fades in, but then it immediately just disappears. But if I increase the time here, it'll sort of take a while to fade out. And then the sustain is just the final level. So maybe we don't want it to fade all the way out. So now there's some sound there, right? And then the release stage is just how long the notes exist after. So in this case, I'm going to add some more. Somewhere around here, and I'm going to quicken up the attack. I don't need it to be that long. I like that the sustain doesn't go all the way down, right? So I have it at 46 right now. Here would be all the way where the sustain is at 0, so you guys can hear. It's gone, right? In this case, here's by bringing it around the 45 mark range, it's there, but the way I think of it is, if this was in a mix, I don't want the keyboard to always be up front in the sound. Like if I'm playing a string sound, it sort of needs to hide behind the other instruments. Like if it's a rock band or something, I want it to kind of be forward for a second and then come back. Yes, Aquatic Borealis, the Ensoniq or Arturia SQ-80V is the software version of this. It has the VFX waves in it as well as glitched waves. And it's a great way to get the Ensoniq SQ-80 sound if you don't want to spend all of the money on a vintage synthesizer. But this has got to be one of the sleeper synths of all time. It is incredible, just awesome. And it's about $750 if you want to get the SQ-80V. I don't even know if it's included in the newest Arturia bundle, but those are $500. So it's actually pretty close. Of course, with that, you get all of their products. So, you know, that's worth something. Hey, Anna, how's it going, Mighty Pinto? My motherfucker, how you doing? You didn't miss anything. You just missed the part with the Valium. It's all good. But yes, I would recommend to anybody who's watching this video, especially if you're watching this after we've been live and you want to fuck around with something like this, a great way would be, I bet there's a demo of the SQ-80V. Open that up and see if you like those sounds. And I haven't done a one-to-one comparison, but I do think that they are probably pretty close. So for everybody who's just coming in right now, welcome to the stream. And also, we are making some Juno 106-esque sounds with the SQ-80. Juno 106s tend to start at around $2,000 at the cheapest. They're notorious for having their voice chips fail, so that's more maintenance in the future. These things are built rock solid, the SQ-80 by Ensoniq, and they usually go for about $750 on Reverb right now. So it's less than half, maybe even a third, because I've seen plenty of 106s, 3,000 or more. So what we've created right now is a sound that fades in quickly and comes out. That's the attack, decay, sustain, and release is this. And that's just how long we get a sound after I pull my hands off of the keys. So this is sort of like fake reverb. So we haven't even touched the filter. The filter hasn't done shit yet. And we already have a really impressive string sound. And just to go over this real quick, that's composed of a sawtooth, an octave down, and this really cool bowing sound that you wouldn't be able to have something like the attack of a real instrument with something like a Juno 106. Now, subtractive synthesis involves removing frequencies. So right now, this sounds good to me, but it sounds very bright and kind of thin, so we should get the filter involved. So right now, I can bring the filter down. This is all the way open. Bringing it all the way down and back up. We don't need all of that. Hit that nasty filter. Hey, James Davis, welcome to the stream. How you doing? And of course, we can do the good thing and add some resonance to it. I'm sure you guys who are synth people know this, but for anybody who's listening to the stream who doesn't, what that does is it adds a peak at the cutoff frequency so you can really hear. let's go ahead and turn this off for a second. So this is how we can get it to sound much more dark. We don't need quite as much resonance for a string sound though. Here is a Juno 106 sample on the Ensoniq Mirage. So that's a real 106 sampled in the 80s. So let's go ahead and bring the filter down a little bit more. Touchy. And you can hear that this is a clacky key bed. Resonance is from the filter. That's correct, Vulture Mom. Probably a little less resonance, but a little higher frequency to try to tune it in to something like that. Probably different waves as well. It has glide on too, right? Not currently. I don't think it does. Never owned an SQ-80, but I had the ESQ-1 and the ESQ-M modded with an SQ-80 chipset since they were released in the mid-80s. Still works great. So I actually don't know what an ESQ-M is. What is that, James? And if you could put an SQ-80 chipset in it, it effectively was an SQ-80, right? So anyways, we'll add a little resonance. I can't help myself, right? Now, what we need to do is apply something that changes the filter over time. So let's darken the filter. I don't want to cut it off, but we can add some keyboard tracking. So what that'll do is open the filter the higher we go, but close it down low. So if with it off, can't even hear these notes. But having some on makes it so the filter doesn't cut off those frequencies as harshly. What I want to do is get the pretty dark. That's pretty good. That's very dark. Let's go ahead and detune that a little bit more. I think we need some thickness. If we change the wave to, say, square on these, I wonder if that would match it closer. Kind of in the ballpark. Anyways, back to the filter. What we're going to do now is select something to modify this. So what we could select is something like the LFO and increase that so that that opens up the filter. And you can hear that that's causing it to pulse. Pretty cool. We'll go into the filter and change that. But for now, what I actually want to have it be controlled by is envelope 1. It's a rack-mounted ESQ-1. Smaller display, bit of a pain to program compared to the ESQ-1. Yeah, I could see that. Yes, very dummy thick. Squares thick. I think the square is going to give us... So now the filter is being controlled by an envelope, and just like an ADSR for the amplifier, it's just doing the same thing. So we can select envelope 1. Now, the critical thing about the SQ-80 that's, like I said, pop the Valium is it's got more than an ADSR. It's actually got a handy diagram right here. So it's got, it starts at 0, goes to level 1, up. It can go negative, which most things can't, on level 2, then back up to the sustain. So we can actually create really complicated stuff, but they programmed a really helpful thing, which is if you don't want to use that, you can just set level 1 and time 1 to 0, and then everything else works like an ADSR. And because we're kind of going for some Juno type sounds, we can actually just do that. So right now, what we're going to do is bring this down to just 0. Another way to do that actually is to hit down and then hold up at the same time, and it'll always bring whatever number you're messing with to 0. What we need to do is increase the time. Well, how? I want to have some movement here. Get brighter than that. Plus 40. Brighter than that. It's a little weird because we have to go through all the different stages, but what I'm going to do is add some attack to the filter. Now it'll take time to get up to that bright point. So we'll start dark and get bright. Now we're starting to get there. And then same thing here. We're going to have the time it takes for it to get down, and we'll add some release. And so we're starting to get into the ballpark of a sort of brassy type sound. Going back to the filter, I think I am going to turn the resonance off because it is getting too brassy for my liking. Let's take longer. Let's make it long. Let's make the time longer. Starting to get there for sure. Going back in, I'm getting tweaky. I want to see how that sounds with sawtooths. I think that's where it needs to be. It needs to be sawtooths for this sound. So very Ensoniq SQ-80 goes Juno 106 type sounds. But as we increase resonance to the filter, we start getting Oberheim, right? Turn down the volume a bit so I don't rip your heads off. Really, really big, thick, crazy Oberheim type sounds, because anybody who hasn't heard me say it enough times, it's the same basic filter that is in the, so it's the Curtis 3328, 3320 that's in the Oberheim OB-Xa and OB-8. These are, you know, $10,000 plus vintage synths. The only difference is that this one is fixed at 24 decibels. The one in the OB series can be swapped. Sawtooth sounds better. Yes, I agree. Yeah, the bass is big. You hear every little bit. There's no stepping. Some people are concerned about that. We're going to turn the resonance almost off, maybe just a very small amount. We're going to turn the envelope, or I guess we can do it from the actual envelope. Let's make it a little darker. It's getting a little too bright. Let's go maybe 30. Bring the decay down. Really like the shape. Let's bring the cutoff down, make it a little darker. Now that it opens up. Suppose if we turn the octave down on this, we'd get something similar. So, that's our first sound. Pretty good. What do you guys think? Little resonance? A little bit more? Give it a little bit more analog character. I think what I'm going to do is go into the envelope and actually turn the level, the amount the envelope is moving down a little. I like it staying in that low mid-range, that wah, wah, wah type sound. Don't forget that it's tracking the keyboard, so if we wanted to emphasize that a bit, we could add that a little bit more. That's a little too much. I don't want it to get harsh. Go into the amplifier and let's go ahead and, or envelope 4, and bring the sustain down a little bit more, because I feel like it's hanging around too long. Really deep, beautiful Juno strings. I love it. So what we can do is we can write and then change the name here. So I believe if I do this and then we can change this to, I have to scroll through all of these to get to the letters, and we'll call it, I need to remember how alphabets work. Wrong way, Juno, and then we'll call this, oh, we only have that many characters. Juno S. How does this feel or compare to a Korg DW-8000? Well, I got one of those. It's right there. Okay. Interesting question. Anyways, I need to write this to, what is it? So I go to cart, and then I'm going to save it here, let's say. So it's writing the new program, and hopefully it'll say on this cart, yes. So we can go back to the first sound we had. And then we can go and play this, and here's another patch I created. You can see it, I don't know if you can see on the screen, but it says Wave creating those sorts of breathy type things. So anyways, how would I say they compare? Well, the DW-8000 has a really unique character due to the filter from Korg. It's the same filter in the DSS-1, and I want to say the Poly 800, but of course it's only got one filter, not a filter per voice in that synth. I struggle to answer that one. This thing to me has that brassy character of the Oberheims, right? Because just, you know, all you have to do is go into the filter and boost the resonance, and all of a sudden you're in that ballpark, right? The filter resonance on the DW-8000 is just going to give you for lack of a better, like a Korg sound. I don't know. For me, that thing's more Blade Runner, and it's more of a, it's more like, it does a lot of key sounds. It's a lot like the Quai K3, where you could tell they were trying to hit that DX7 market and do electronic key sounds. Yeah. They are similar-ish in manipulation. So if you only care about, let's say, you know, the sound of it, the raw elements, the SQ-80 and the DW-8000, it's hard to say. I'd probably say the SQ-80 sounds, I would say the oscillators sound better on the SQ-80, and the filter, it's hard to say sounds better, right? Because the OB's filter series from the Oberheims are going to sound great. Everybody loves them, but they are sort of like, you've heard that sound before. The DW-8000 gives you something else that you maybe haven't heard. I think it's the coolest filter in the room for me personally. It's really dark though. A lot of people don't like it. Synthpunk was on the channel talking shit, as he is wont to do, about the DW-8000. He's not a fan, and I think it's because, yeah, it is super dark. And that's better or worse, right? Like with this, you're going to be able to hit a lot of different territory with the filter. With that one, it's going to get dark, which I think is cool. I've been listening to a lot of Goblin since the last stream. Yo, Aquatic Borealis! Thank you very much for your very kind donation of $20, and the comment says, awesome stream. I think you're awesome. I appreciate you and everything you do. Thank you for becoming a part of the SCUM family and hanging out with us each week. Really appreciate the generosity, you guys. And so thank you very much. I appreciate that. Pinto, I've been listening to a lot of Goblin since the last stream. Roller is a freaking banger. I've got to check it out after this stream. Found out they used a mini Moog, but I'm not sure which model. Yeah, so after the last stream, I looked up like what they were using, Pinto, and it was like they had a memory Moog. They had like basically, if it's a synth that costs more than $30,000 nowadays, that's what they were using. So unfortunately, I probably won't be able to get my hands on any of those synths, but really cool stuff that they do, and we can definitely create those types of sounds with this synth for sure. I'm sitting here shaking my head like we're in a room together. Yeah, that's the best part about Scum Night. It really is. The feeling of it is like a bunch of friends getting together and having a drink and playing some synthesizers. It's a lot of fun. So I hope I struggled with that question, James, but I appreciate it. You asking. So anyways, we can go to this and open up a new initialized patch. So now that was sort of like a basic sort of sound, but we've got so many different things we could be using. So wow, that's really terrible down there. But I remember up here being like, whoa, that's beautiful. So we're going to start with one of these cross waves or transient sounds to make a sound. We're going to bring up the volume on oscillator 2, and we're going to select something else. I actually just accidentally hit square 2, which is what I was hoping for. Square 2 is a sort of darker square. Here is the first square. Square 2, just somewhere around here. Somewhere. There's so many of them, it's hard to find. There we go, square 2. We're going to turn the volume down a bit, because that's a little... And we'll open up the third oscillator, which is Sawtooth right now. And let's pick something else. Let's like find, I think it was Voice 3. Had that great sort of like texture, breathiness to it. We gotta turn it, we gotta mix it in a little. I don't want too much because it's gonna get too annoying quickly. Maybe even a little less. Also, I've said this before, I've got this great programmer, but I'm actually kind of chose to just use the SQ-80 as it came because I wanted to show it's really great to program with. This is a great synth to program on. It's very similar to the Quai K3, which I think is another hugely underrated synth, also a hybrid synth. This is sort of like the Quai K3 is going to get you simple, really great analog sounds, plus some like DX7 type stuff, but with a warm analog filter. This, we can go way into the like Roland D50 territory, but with an analog filter. That's a pretty good mixture. We're starting to get into flute territory. What's everybody sipping? I'm personally trying a Cali Merlot. Very unusual. So we're already getting something really cool. Let's go ahead into envelope 4 and add some release. That'll start giving us... We're going to move into an interesting thing. So you guys probably can't see this. Right now it says like T4, which stands for time 4, the release of this synth. It's got a second mode. So it's got 2 modes. So right now this is no release. Here's some release. If we go into the R mode, what it does is it has a second release stage which simulates reverb more accurately. A little too long. So it's a more complicated, we have an additional release stage, which I don't even, really don't even understand what that means. We've got Autumn sipping some Añejo tequila, yet to replenish his vodka and Baja Blast supply. Oreos and a tall glass of milk. That's awesome. I have a mimosa, and Ryan has what he described as a Yoo-hoo flavored milk stout. That's awesome. Let's go ahead and bring that. Well, we can bring the volume up a little bit more on the breathiness. That was a little too much. Bring the square wave up a little too. I think it could go up a bit. Anyways, back to envelope 4. What we can do is bring the sustain down a bit. So now what we're getting is just getting this very tight sound. So 47 sounds good. This is it before, all the way up. But by bringing it down to 47, 48, it helps give it a little bit of something, but we need some decay, so we'll just add a little decay. So that'll be, instead of like super short, we'll take a bit to get there. So we're kind of creating a flute-like sound, but it's got like an attack to it, almost like a mallet instrument. So we're creating some sort of like something that wouldn't exist in the real world, which is cool. When we get in a beard care video, we can make that happen if that's something that we need to get going on. I didn't know there was a demand for it, but if enough people want it. By the way, guys, we're coming up on episode 100 of Scum Night on YouTube. It'll be happening in, I don't know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, somewhere in there. Now, it's not episode 100 of Scum Night because a lot of you guys know we were doing this on YouTube for probably about a year and a half before we came over to, well, maybe not, maybe a year or so over on Facebook Live before we came over to YouTube. But I still think it's a good time to celebrate. And I do have a secret coming. Really excited. It's coming in the mail for that stream. But maybe we need to have a beard care stream as a celebration of 100 episodes. Yeah. Haven's Cab Sauv from Napa Valley. Have to save it for the cottage, though. You guys got a cottage? What the fuck? Love the synthwave look of the studio. Yes, we've put a lot of time and effort into making this look the way it does and do cool things like have the waves ripple, and then as I play notes, the lights turn on. It's pretty neat. I don't know. Yeah, the Facebook days were something. Anyways, back on topic. Okay, so we've got a pretty good shape for the actual sound of the amplifier. What I want to do now is create some movement with the filter. So let's go check that out real quick. Let's bring this down. Oh, I really like it down low. I want to use a pretty good amount of keyboard tracking, but I don't like going all the way. So I'm going to increase that. Let's see what happens if we have some detuning to this wave. That helped. That opened it up quite a bit. Back to the filter. Oh, we can turn the envelope to envelope 1 and bring it up a bit. And now we can go in here and actually add some bring some shape into this. Oh, I see what I'm doing wrong. I need to actually increase the amount here. Maybe bring this down. There we go. Now we can actually control this. So we need that to be faster for sure. Whoa. That's crazy. Oh, I see. This needs to not be as low. That does need to be longer. Bizarre. Wow, it's touchy. Very touchy. Bring this time, make it a little faster. Oh, I see part of what the problem is. I'm actually going too high with the filter. So there we go. Speed it up a little. So we're starting to get a really interesting, complex type of sound that wouldn't be possible with just anything else. So I want that to be faster. There we go. It's almost like kind of like a rain stick type sound. I'm going to go into all of these oscillators and bring them up an octave. I don't know. What are we thinking, guys? What do we think about this sound? I think so far we've sort of used like the Juno 106 type stuff, but with the cool, interesting waves, we can get even cooler than that. What we're going to do is go to the amplifier here. So we're modifying the amplifier with envelope 4. The Poly 6 has 1 fucking envelope. This thing has 4. Just think about how complex that can get. We're going to select another modifier. In this case, I want to use LFO 1. School night. Oh no, gotta get the little bear showered and into bed after his second dinner is over. I appreciate that you have a second dinner. That's awesome. That's how you know you're a good mom. So, love the shit out of you, Autumn. I hope you have a wonderful night, and say hi to Xander for me. I think the filter could be slightly darker. Darker still. Get real dark. Lower the resonance a bit. Make it a little brighter. Yo! Alright. Thank you very much for your purchasing of a Vulture Culture shirt. I appreciate it. Like I said, we have a sale going on right now. T-shirts for $15. Please go ahead and get some of those because we're deleting most of them out of the store. We're going to start over for most of them, and the ones that we don't, we will be raising the price back up. So Z says hello, and around the burger in his mouth. That's awesome. Living his best life. I like it a little bit darker, a little thicker. Oh, it sounds so good up there. Really cool. Let's add a little bit. I know it's getting a little tweaky, but this is the fun part, right? Let's make it take a while for it to fade out. Doing the wrong shit. Should have been this one. No wonder it's not changing. There we go. Really, really cool. Really, really cool. So anyways, let's go to LFO 1. We can change the frequency of the LFO. Let's turn the delay off. Reset on. I actually don't know how to use the this wave as much. Interesting. What is this? L2? It's like level 2? It should be affecting. I thought I have the... Oh, no. I don't have it enabled. That's why we're not hearing it. There we go. I was like, what am I doing wrong? Okay, so let's turn that down. That's what's up. And in fact, if we add some delay to that... So, this synth is deep. So I believe what reset is that the wave will reset every time we hit a key, which is considered polyphonic LFOs. But we can also turn that off. bring the LFO. Really interesting. So we could turn it off here and apply it, I think, just to the I think what we're doing now is affecting the volume. But I don't know if I'm hearing it. Low frequency oscillator, that's correct. Basically something that controls... I think it was more interesting on the filter, honestly. So let's just go back and put that on LFO1. Bring the filter down a little bit more even, maybe. Bring the amount that the filter's moving. I think the LFO sounded really cool when it was polyphonic because it starts over every time you hit a key per key. You are becoming such a synth geek. What an interesting sound. Has anyone used the SQ-80V software synth? I haven't. I'm curious if any of you guys have. Arturia makes great stuff, and as I've said, you know, if you're interested in this sort of thing, oh, there we go. So, oh, I see. The mod wheel's controlling this. So what if we just turn this? I want to modify it. That's why it was minimal. All right, so anyways, we can hear what that's doing. Let's try to get the fucking thing to work now with the amplifier. Let's go ahead and get LFO1. Well, there's something I'm not understanding. Oh well. We might as well go and put it back on. I think that's a pretty good sound. Let's go ahead and write it. Let's what should we call this sound, guys? I need to take a nice little chug of some dark truth. So what are we thinking we should call this sound? It's an interesting sort of... So Aquatic Borealis, what do you think? How do you think the sound is too, by the way? Do you feel like the software gives you the gritty lo-fi character that we all love? I wouldn't be surprised. All right, so we'll call this one... What are we going to call this? Call this one... Hybrid. We'll call it hybrid. and we'll save it to cart, and we'll save it right on over there. So let's go check out the Juno strings we came up with earlier. So see what that sounds like. Sounds pretty good. The real thing does sound better, though. I'm always a little disappointed to hear that. I mean, it does, in a sense, justify this synthesizer addiction. But at the same time, I really, at least in principle, believe that they should be able to get the software to where it's spot on, or at least gives you everything you wanted out of the sound, you know? Juno. All right, let's go ahead and make a bass sound now, because we've kind of done some strings. Then we have this really cool kind of hybrid flute sound. I'm going to go in and remove the resonance. I think that just sounds better. So again, what we can do is just go to right, cart A, and hit the thing and overdub that. More organic. Yeah, there is something to be said about the warmth of this thing, for better or worse. I mean, one thing is, and you know, comparing it with the DW-8000, it's not like exactly sharp up in the high end. You know, it's got a certain sort of sound to the filter up there. Anyways, let's go. Start over. Oscillator 1. Let's go find one of those really gnarly ones. That's pretty gnarly. So what we're going to do is pull that exact same sound up. So I'm going to turn the second oscillator on and pull up the bass sound here. But we have to detune it or else it's not going to sound right. And I don't mind it getting really kind of detuney because we're going to make this fucking gnarly. Well, it'd be interesting, Aquatic Borealis, a challenge, since I'm showing you how I'm making these sounds on the SQ-80. I'd be curious if you could emulate one of these sounds, and then, you know, we could do a kind of a one-to-one. How does it sound on the hardware and how does it sound on the software? That would be pretty cool. And then what I want to do is add one of those insane ones, like the, what was it? Some of the metal, what was it? Metal? I'm going to turn this up. Well, Plink actually, some of these sound pretty good down here. Pluck has that's the one that's a kind of guttural. Kind of almost dubstep-y type thing. Oh, slap. We have to turn these down a little. So we're kind of in like Seinfeld Korg M1 territory. Let's bring these and make them the same volume. So it has some attack to it already, right? I'm only playing through the presets. Was just playing a patch called Froggy Bass that sounds really close to what you're playing. You could do a SCUM night together. Is that possible? It's not completely impossible, or at least you could send me some WAV files of what you're playing. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people went and you know, put the slap bass sound on the bass waveforms. Let's see if we can detune these even a little further. I think this could sound better, nastier. Yeah, it sounds better. Let's add some resonance. Not that much resonance. Let's bring some resonance in, but bring the filter in. Oh, little subwoofer rush here. Can you hear that? If you're listening on a laptop, you can't hear that. Let's add a little bit of keyboard movement. We're getting real nasty. And so this would also be a good way to compare the software, because if there's one place software usually breaks down, and that's around the analog filter. Listen to the scream on that. And by the way, James, that's something you're not going to get on the DW8000, this type of thing. Oh, interesting. Let's turn this off. Sounds really good. What we need to do now, though, is add an envelope to this. We'll use envelope 1. And then go in here and fuck around a little bit. And we're going to bring the sustain all the way down. And what we should be able to do is tighten the sound. Oh, that was, oh, got erect. That is brutal. What we can do is actually go back to the filter page and maybe... Wow, that is deep. I don't, again, if you're not listening with like great speakers, that might be below. So what we're going to do is bring the sustain up so it's not as crazy. Wow. Woof, woof, woof. That is crazy. Okay, going back into the filter, let's turn the resonance down for a second. Or add just a little, maybe. Because the thing about it is, as you add resonance, I don't think it's a ladder filter, so you're not losing bass. I think you're just losing signal. We can actually add keyboard to this, which changes how this envelope reacts to the keyboard. So I guess it shortens the decay as you go higher up, which is like more like what an analog, or I'm sorry, what an acoustic instrument would do. So without it on, you can hear it's the same speed up here. But as I increase this, it'll get shorter up high. But for a bass sound, we don't really need that though. There we go. I want a little of that growl back. I need the fucking volume. I need to beat this sound into my fucking skull. Oh. That is mean. Let's increase the... Increase that a little bit, and we can even increase the time a bit. We're getting... Daddy's feeling things. Just a little resonance. It's killing the bass for me. I think it sounds better without it, unfortunately. It's a little shame. Fucking brutal. I've been resisting this, but like, it just cries out for distortion. Hey, so here's a cool thing we can do. We can actually go to the filter, and I believe we can apply negative keyboard tracking, but I can't figure out how to do it. Wow, that is thick and deep. That's like that 9 Inch Nails type of just growl. My dick hole is expanded. Okay, we gotta write this one. New name. Oh, God, that was so good. We're gonna call this one Ruthless. Typing it in. It's one thing I don't miss about the 80s is typing in these stupid fucking little screens. Okay, Ruthless. There's no S's. But what are you gonna do? So internal cart here. Kind of a Pactima Berserk. Yeah, absolutely. So you know your synth pop if you know that band. Definitely a, like early 2000s, I guess I'd say, future pop group. I'm surprised you guys know that one. Let's go back and check out the hybrid flute type thing. Check out some strings. We've created some cool sounds this stream. So we've really only scratched the surface here. But I feel like we've been able to create some... Oh, it's so fucking... God, I could play that sound all day long. That's kind of the thing about synths too, when you're making sounds with them. A lot of times the first few you come up with, you're sort of like feeling your way around, like, hey, what would it be like if I did this, that, or the other thing? But by the time you sort of had some time with it, it starts to sort of, you start getting ideas and you start getting a little bit more interesting. Max M Ace or Max Mace 111, just for fun on that bass, hit the modes button and try a glide it between 5 and 10. Might sound cool. All right, so let me go ahead and see the modes button, and let's add some glide and see what happens between 5 and 10. I guess I'd have to put mono on, right? Yeah, it's pretty cool. We have a let's see. So what's happening in mono mode is it's confining the synth to one voice at a time, and it's not letting it re-trigger, but I think I can turn it on. I'm trying to turn legato off. Try this. Wow, that is interesting. Okay, let's turn that off. Turn mono off. But yeah. Oh, it's just so fucking groovy. Yeah, but that's a good point too. I mean, I neglect all the time to go into like all the different features that are possible with a synth, like mono mode and everything like that. So really cool. Welcome to the stream, Max, by the way. This really is just maybe my favorite sound I've heard on this thing. So good. So anyways, guys, I think that's probably a good place to call it for the evening. We could go on all night. Wouldn't be surprised if at some point in the SCUM future we actually go through and make a bunch of new sounds for this. Just really a lot of fun to be able to kind of get this like David Lynch type sound with this. Yes, Gen X here, Skinny Puppy, A-Pop, Frontline Assembly, Early Ministry, etc. Yes, James, I am deeply interested in getting my hands on a Kawai R50E at some point, which is the drum machine Ministry used, and Front 242 and all of that on their early recordings, Wax Trax Records. I actually want to release a product involving that at some point, but we'll get there. But anyways, guys, it's been a fun one. And really great to get an opportunity to explore what might be one of the greatest vintage synths of all time. So I have a penchant for vintage synths that don't cost so much, like really great instruments that have been kind of overlooked a little bit, because people hear Juno 106, they hear Oberheim, they hear Sequential Moog, CS80, words like that, Mini Moog, make people want to spend tens of thousands of dollars. But the truth is, you can get a lot of really great synths for less than the cost of modern synths, and they're more interesting to me because of their character and the time and place in which they came. They all had limitations, so they had to like focus on one type of sound, one thing they did really well. So you see that with a lot of synths. So for instance, like the JD800s and the D50s have that like digital sound to compete with Yamaha. The DW8000, the JX3P analog or hybrids that, you know, had to be stripped down a bit. They couldn't be quite fully featured in a lot of ways. And there's this thing about this synth in particular. Good night, Gwen. I love you very much. The thing about this synth for me is I'm like, this thing kind of covers it all. Like, this feels like, you want to get cold and digital? Well, guess what? We got digital oscillators, so you can go down that Roland D50 territory. But what if you want to stay like super analog and just kind of do, you know, a little bit of that type of thing? Like, what about that? You know, well, you can do those types of sounds. And what if you want to have like a sick bass line, a la 9 Inch Nails? Well, you can do that too. This synth is so flexible and incredible and deep as compared to basically everything else in this room. I mean, even compared to the Korg MS-2000B, which came out 22 years later, this thing doesn't have effects, but as far as the actual like modulation and stuff, this is more complicated, I believe. I could be wrong, but I mean, it's deep and kind of gives you everything you could want. Good night, good night, Vulture Mom. Love you very much. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, for me, it's just like the fact that these go for like $750 on Reverb about right now. It's one of the most compelling synths I think that you could spend money on. When we're talking about value for money, a lot of people don't like that I talk about value, so I'm going to go on a rant. So just turn this video off if you're tired of me ranting. But the thing about value is that if you're a synth collector and you can spend $5,000 on an OB-Xa8, go ahead and do it. Go get yourself some of that. You'll be pressing page 2 a whole lot, but go ahead and do it. Whatever. Spend $5,000 on something that you have to, you know. But I'm interested in beginners, and I think we all forget, those of us who've been in any sort of, you know, art form, doesn't have to be music, for a while, that there's a lot of upfront costs to get through the door, right? And I want to be like an anti-gatekeeper, which is to say, to encourage beginners like, hey, you don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on crazy equipment. You can actually spend fucking sub $500 on a Quai K3 and basically cover everything you could want from that analog, you know, that sort of Juno 106 territory with that synth. Or you spend $250 more on this and you have just, it's basically a D50 plus the Juno 106 with the Oberheim filters. I mean, it's just fucking crazy that you can buy this for that cheap. But because Ensoniq went out of business and people forgot about them, it doesn't have that same like name brand, whatever, but it sounds incredible. And so if you're a person who wants to get into synthesis, you know, this thing, you know, a Juno X is $2,000. That's a lot of fucking money, especially if you're working for minimum wage or something like that. You know, if you're saving up your quarters to buy a synthesizer one day, I don't want to recommend to you guys what a lot of the other synth tubers are recommending, because they're able, and it's such a luxury, obviously spent a stupid amount of money on synths, but that's a luxury for me. You know, I was a professional DJ for 10 years. I still make a lot of money off of mastering, and I have a really stupidly good paying job for opening up Bud Lights at Harry's Banana Farm. My point being, I get excited about trying to show people stuff that isn't gonna be a something that syncs them. And like Aquatic Borealis said, it's a great investment. These synths go up in value because there were only so many made in the 80s. If you buy a modern synth nowadays, you know, they're making a lot of them, right? And it may or may not be considered a classic in 10 years. This is a classic. And this, you know, especially if something has analog filters, I go back to that. If there's an analog component, you know, the filters in particular on a synthesizer, that's going to continue to be worth something because there is a magic to analog filters that's difficult to capture with software. I'm not of the belief that it's impossible, but even Aquatic Borealis playing with the software over on his end was saying, hey, you know, it doesn't sound the same. There is something special and magical about this. Dude, I collect the crap out of Ensoniqs. Yeah, I can see why. I've got two, and I could see myself getting the whole range. But the thing is, an ESQ-1 or the SQ-80 should cover kind of most of what most people are going to need out of them, and they do have those analog filters. Fismo, VFX, some of the other stuff, ASR 10, good gear, but it could, you might not need it. You might be good with something like with the analog filter, whatever. I'd be curious to know what you think, James, about that. If you've got a second to sort of hit me with your opinion on if the analog filters matter as much or not. So, two questions. One is, do you think the analog filter makes a big difference? Question one. Question two, do you feel, you know, if you had to say to a beginner, what would be the best Ensoniq to spend your money on, best value for your money? I'd be really interested to know your opinion on what is the best value Ensoniq. Might be the ESQ-1 would be my guess, but I don't want to influence you. Tell me what you think. I'm here to listen to someone who really knows. ESQ-1, yeah. So, on the used market, sometimes you can find an SQ-80 for as cheap as an ESQ-1, around $500, $250 for an ESQ-1. My friend James, those ESQ-1s they ain't hitting for $250 anymore. They're like at least $500 nowadays, I think. I could be wrong. If you can find one for $250, get that motherfucker. If you can get any synth with an analog filter from the 80s for $250, get it. I don't care what it is. Like, it's just a good investment. Better than crypto. If they're out there, I believe you. You know more about Ensoniqs than I do. But, yeah. Basically, what I'm trying to say, sorry I kind of got on a rant there, but you know how daddy likes to fucking get passionate once he's had a high alcohol beer. You know, I just hate that some people feel like shut out of the game. They're like, well, I want to make electronic music, or I want to make, well, it could be hip hop, it could be, you know, lo-fi chill beats, could be anything. And they're like, well, I can't do it because I won't be able to afford one of these vintage analog synthesizers that I see my favorite band using. You'd be surprised, you know? You can get one of these for less than the cost of the cheapest analog synth, like from Behringer, like a DeepMind 12 or something. You can get one of these guys. That's really cool to me. Like, that excites me, that the beginners don't have to be locked out, that beginners can actually get into playing synths. And this is a great one. It's so easy to program. I bought this expensive programmer, but I showed you guys tonight that you can create really cool sounds really quick. The interface is incredible. It is my favorite interface. For the complexity, it's incredibly easy. It's just great. Yeah. Secondhand synths are going up again. Chip shortage is hurting current synth companies. Yes, for sure. I mean, I would recommend, even if you want to get a new synth, buy it secondhand. You know, it's worth it. And especially because, you know, I just sold the Korg Prologue. It was sitting right up here. Look at how sad this is. It's gone. And the thing is, though, that someone really cool in Idaho is going to get to use that instrument, and it's a beautiful instrument. So I'm happy that they're going to be able to make music with it. For me, it was sitting on the rack here, and I wasn't using it as much as they probably will be. So it's a really cool thing to be able to take one of these instruments that was someone's baby. You know, the guys at Ensoniq, this was their baby. They were trying to make the greatest synthesizer of all time, till the Fismo. And they, you know, I think they succeeded. I think they really... I love hybrid synths. I'm a slut for them. If there's a hybrid synth from the 80s, I probably have it in this room. It's my favorite type of sound, because that lo-fi oscillator character mixed with the warm, juicy analog filter, I think is great. And but it's just a beautiful thing when you can have your hands on an instrument that someone loved. But, you know, especially once you've had it, it's time to set it free, and then someone else can have it. And if you're getting into the synth game, I highly recommend, like what Aquatic was saying, which is go secondhand. You know, they're going up in value, so it's like it's a good investment. The Korg Prologue, I think I sold it for, you know, $100 less than I bought it for brand new, which is pretty crazy that it only cost me $100 to have a synthesizer for a couple of years. So that was it. I only paid $100 to have it in the studio. I've shot over a dozen videos with it now. You know, that's cool. That's awesome. Like, synths don't have to be a huge money sink. But, you know, even the cost of the cables in this room is crazy. Anyways, I'm ranting. I've been having some drinks. You know, that's part of the game. So anyways, guys, I'll go ahead and set you free for the week. Next week, if everything goes well, Darkseid 2. Really excited to be going back into the world of H.R. Giger. I try to do breaking up the synth stuff. We've been doing kind of like a formula of 3 weeks of synths and then 1 week of something else to keep it interesting. So next week is going to be a really cool stream, jumping back into the world with Mike Dawson and his alien sperm in his brain. That'll be great. And I hope you guys have a wonderful week between now and then. Looking forward to it. Love everybody. And I just want to give you guys a big shout out and thank you again for being the best SCUM family anyone could ever have. Thank you guys and good night.